So we have talked about radicals. We've talked about how many, like when you're taking a root, the root tells us how many numbers we need in order to pull out the group, right? I'm not saying that's great. But anyways, we are going to be solving radical equations. If you notice, there's an equal sign, where yesterday we were just simplifying, right? So now we're solving. So your first step is to get the exponent on one side of the equation. Okay, then you will root each side of the equation by the same root slash exponent to eliminate the exponent. And then you will solve the equation and check your answer. Remember that if you have an odd root, you will get one answer. If you make an even root, so this is where we're going to end up making the roots, okay? If you have an even root, you will get two answers because it's going to be plus or minus. Okay, remember odd roots, you could end up getting a negative number or a positive number. If you have a negative under the root, your answer is going to be negative. Positive under the root, positive. Okay, so on example 1, we need to get the exponent by itself. So what's the first step I would take on this? Very good. So now I have x to the 5th power equals, and 128 divided by 4 is 32. Okay, step 2 is that you're going to take the square root of both sides, but not necessarily the square root. Depends on what number is here. So what root do you think I'm going to take? You guys are amazing. 5th root of both sides. Okay, since I'm taking the square root, oftentimes it's plus or minus, but it's only plus or minus if it's an even root. So is this answer going to be plus or minus? No, because it is a odd root. So I'm going to get x equals, and does anyone know what the 5th root of 32 is?
2.
It is 2. This is one that hopefully you'll have memorized if you don't already, but if you needed to, you could break this down to 8 times 4. We know that 8 is actually 2 times 2 times 2, and 4 is 2 times 2, which makes 5 2s, and that's how I get the answer of 2. That was a lot of 2s in one sentence. Okay. That's my answer. Any questions? All right. Example 2. Is my exponent by itself? Good. So in order to solve for x, what will I need to do on this one? You're going to take the cubed root of both sides. Now notice I have a negative here. What's going to happen with that negative? It's going to come out and become just a negative. The only time it comes out and it becomes an I is when our root is what? Even. If you have an odd root, you can just pull it out and it becomes a negative. So right here I have x minus 2 equals, and I'm going to write this as negative root 14 because I can't break down 14 anymore. And actually I shouldn't just have that as root, it should be what? Good, the cubed root. And again, make sure that you have that 3 inside your little root thing so that you don't end up thinking it's a 3. And then what would I do here to get the x by itself? Good, add 2 to both sides. So we end up getting x equals 2, and then I have minus the cubed root of 14. I can't combine those because we can't add a regular number and a root together. Okay, example 3. I think you are ready to try this one on your own. Do you already have the answers?
I have a question.
Yes.
How can you turn the negative from a 14 into an I?
Who can answer that question for me? Cody.
Because the root is odd, and odd roots can have negative numbers because the negative times the negative times the negative is still negative.
Are we good?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Cody. Awesome. Oh, yes, good. Show me answers on your whiteboards if you can. There you go. Perfect. You have the wrong signs. Right numbers, but not the right signs. You've got it. No, you have it. You have one answer, you need two answers. You got it, you've got it. Good. We need you to You have one answer correct, there should be one more. No. Yes. No. Yes. Good. Good. Yeah. But you're like, I'm not sure why. Good. Okay. All right. So I am going to pull some popsicle sticks today. Calling on some of you. So be ready to answer some good questions for me. Okay. First step is what, Sydney? Perfect. Okay, you can stop there. You are good. So she said take the fourth root on each side. Okay, my next step is what, Aaron?
Let x plus 5 and plus or minus 16, root 16.
Okay. Okay, I'll do that. Okay, next step. Lillian. Very good. So 16 is 4 and 4, and each of the 4s is 2 and 2. And some of you might already know that without having to show all that work. And so Lillian said x plus 5 equals plus or minus 2. Okay, next step. Sienna. Good. Two equations. X plus 5 equals 2. X plus 5 equals negative 2. And my next step is what, Ivy? Good. When I subtract 5, what do I get? Awesome. Okay, so those are my two answers. X equals negative 3 and negative 7. When do I have I'm asking a question, don't say it out loud, I'm going to pull a stick. Why did I have a plus or minus on this one and not a plus or minus on example 2? So again, why did I have a plus or minus on 3 and not on 2? Camille. The root on this one is even, and then on 2 it was odd. Good. And so even roots give us plus or minus, and odd roots will just give us one answer, and it could be positive or negative. All right, questions before we move on? Okay, let's move on. All right, step 1 here is to get the radical on one side of the equation. What is different? On this side, it was get the exponent, and over here it says get the radical. Okay. Raise each of the equations to the same exponent / power to eliminate the radical, or raise each side to the reciprocal power to eliminate the rational exponent. Solve the equation and check your answer. Okay. Are we ready? Okay, example 1 is the radical or root by itself. Okay, what kind of radical or root is this? What number is there? 2. So if it doesn't say the number, it's automatically a 2. So what would I do in order to get rid of this radical or root? What would I have to do? I have to square it. Okay, so when I square it, That means I actually have 2 of these. So what comes out is just, good, 5x minus 9 equals, and 11 squared is, and then we just have a regular equation that we can solve, right? So we add 9 to both sides. I have 5x equals, and 121 plus 9 makes 130. And then what would be your last step here? Good. And how many times does 5 go into 130? 26. If you need to, do long division. 5 goes into 130. How many 5s are in 13? 2, which is 10. 3 left over. And that's 6. All right. So, if you need help with long division, I can help you later.
Maybe your son can help me.
Seriously. All right, example 2. Okay, is my radical or root by itself?
No, you can move it a little.
Good. So in order to get rid of this plus 1, we are going to subtract 1 to both sides. So now I have the cubed root of x minus 5 equals, and -1 and -1 makes -2. Okay, is my root by itself now? Yes. So what will I do in order to get rid of that root? Good. We have to cube it because this is a cubed root. And whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. Very good.
Oh wait, that's not underneath the plus one. That's not underneath.
It's not. You're right. That's why I had to subtract 1 first. Okay. So when I cube the cubed root of x minus 5, what do I end up getting? X minus 5 equals, and what is -2 cubed? Good. And then lastly, I will add 5 to both sides, and we get x equals okay. How do you check your answers? So let's just check this one for fun. Because I know this stuff is really fun. So I'm going to take that -3 and I'm going to plug it into this root right here for x. So that means I have the cubed root of -3 minus 5 plus 1 equals -1. So -3 minus 5 makes what? The cubed root of -8. And what is the cubed root of -8? Well, we'd end up taking out the negative, right? So you'd have negative cubed root of 8, and then 8 is 2, 2, and 2, which is a group of 2's. So I get -2 plus 1, and does that equal -1? So it checks out. Did I lose somebody? So -3 minus 5 is -8. Oh, yeah, I'm just taking that answer and checking it in my original problem. Okay. All right. Example 3. You're on your own. Give me your answers on your whiteboards. Good, good, good. Good, 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 good. Perfect. Perfect. Yep.
I'm sorry.
No. Yes. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay, we're going to pull some popsicle sticks. Perfect. Okay, first step is what? Blessy, what do I do first? Perfect. Divide by 2 is the correct answer. So now I have the cubed root of x minus 3 equals 2. Next step is what? Roel. What's my next step?
You square it, cube it.
Cube it, because I need to get rid of my cubed root. If I squared it, that wouldn't be enough to get rid of the root. So, okay, so we're going to cube both sides, and then what do I end up with? Hope.
Oh, x. Sorry, I'm working on number 4. X 3.
Perfect. And this is really hard. My last step, Cody, is to do what?
Two.
Wait, we're right here.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
It's all right.
Add 3.
There you go. I know, it was tough.
Even Einstein was with Adrian.
Mainly because not everyone was paying attention. You guys are trying to get the answers for the next problem. Okay, x equals 11 is correct. Very good. All right, who thinks I know the first step on example 4?
No, you have to make the
Blah, blah, blah.
No, you divide by 7 to get the x by itself. And
Just
then
divide by 7. You can do it either way.
Goes
Make it
down.
simple. Just divide by 7.
I think we should have a debate.
it'll work out either way.
Okay, if we go back, hold on.
We're all on my team.
This says get the radical on one side of the equation. Now remember, exponents and radicals mean the same thing.
Exactly.
Okay? Now, if you look down here, is the 7 included with this 3/5? No, the 3/5 is only going to the x. So we do need to get rid of the 7 first. Okay, so shh. That means that my first step will be what?
divide by 7.
Very good. X to the 3/5 equals 8. Okay, now if we go back here, it says, or raise each side to the reciprocal power. So instead of writing this like as a root, it's easier to leave it as an exponent in this case. And so what would get rid of 3/5? What's the reciprocal? Good, so you're going to raise it to the 5/3 power. But whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the, so I'm raising this side to the 5/3. So over here, all those cancel out, and I get x by itself, which is exactly what we want. But how am I going to rewrite this in order to find the answer?
Oh, you have to root it. It's gonna be
Which number is my root, 5 or 3?
8.
Okay, so 3 is my root, and 5 is my
Power.
exponent or power. So when I rewrite this, I'm going to write this as the cubed root of 8 to the 5th power. And remember, you can have the 5th on the outside like this or on the inside, whatever you like better.
That's the answer.
Cubed root of 8 is what? 2. And then 2 to the 5th power is what? 32. So my answer is x equals 32. Okay, any questions there?
Last page.
Okay, moving on.
Don't give up.
Okay, what are we going to do on example 5? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull a popsicle stick. I want you to look at example 5 and tell me my first step. My first step is what, Alexis? So this is to the 2/3. So it's very similar to this one. Once we got the 3/5 by itself. What did we do on this one? Once we got the exponent by itself, we raised it to the reciprocal power. So this was to the 3/5. We raised it to the 5/3 to get rid of that power or exponent. So on here, the power exponent's by itself. So we have to raise it to what in order to get rid of it? Exactly. And whatever we do to one side, we have to do the same thing to the other side. So right here, these cancel out, and I'm just left with 3x plus 4. But over here, I need to simplify this. Now, when I'm raising something to 3/2, I'm really rooting it, right? Is this root an odd root or an even root? Even root. So what's my answer going to be? Plus or minus. You have to be very careful. Even though I'm using an exponent, I'm really rooting it. So if the bottom number is even, it's going to be what? Plus or minus. If the bottom number was odd, then it would just be whatever it is. So it's going to be plus or minus. And then how will I write 16 to the 3/2? Who would like to tell me? Okay. Yes, and how do I write that?
2 or square root
Square root of 16.
and 3.
Perfect. And what is the square root of 16? 4. And then 4 cubed is, so that means it's plus or minus 64. What? Right, so now you need to write your two separate equations. 3x plus 4 equals 64, and 3x plus 4 equals negative 64. And then we would solve. So we'd subtract 4. 3x equals 60. Divide by 3. X equals 20. Subtract 4. 3x equals negative 68. Divide by 3. What was the shortcut? Sorry for dividing by 3. So what's 6 plus 18?
14.
Is 14 divisible by 3? Sorry.
Are you okay?
I'll be fine in a second. No, so this is my answer.
You need water?
I'm okay. Thank you.
Negative 68 over 3.
You're on pipe, maybe.
Something. Okay, I'm back to normal. All right, here we go.
Wait, you just have to like drink water.
So you just don't do it?
Or keep coughing. No, so it's not, you don't have to change it to a mixed number.
Alright.
You can just leave it like that.
It's cool.
Okay, this is starting to get a little more complicated.
That's how I like it.
This one's not though. 6 is not. Okay, now realize we have two roots, right? But the nice thing is, if I'm trying to get rid of my roots, if I square both sides, what's going to happen?
You don't have them by themselves.
Both of your roots are going to end up going away, and you're still doing the same thing to both sides. Okay, so I square both sides, and we end up getting 2x plus 5 equals x plus 7, and can you solve that? Yes, you can. 'Cause you're smart. And this is first grade math. No, I'm just kidding. So those cancel out. And I'm going to go ahead and subtract 5 at the same time. So 2x minus x is x equals, and 7 minus 5 is 2. There's my answer.
Wow.
Okay. Are we good? 7. Okay, so my square's by itself, or my root is by itself. What am I going to do to get rid of that root? What am I doing? Square both sides? Okay. Well, what's going to happen when I square the x minus 2? You need to do your box or your FOIL method. So you might want to do a little side problem. If you want to do a box, do a box. Maybe some of you can do it in your head now. I don't know. But we get x squared, negative 2x, negative 2x, a positive 4. So what does that end up equaling?
Negative 4.
Good. X squared minus 4x plus 4 equals what?
X plus 10.
Okay. This is for a popsicle stick. Who thinks they know what my next step is, or what is the next step on this equation? Dilly.
Oh, subtract by x and negative 10.
And why? Why are we going to subtract by x and negative 10?
Equal to 0.
To set it equals 0 so that we can factor. That's right. So we want this set equal to 0 so that we can factor and solve for x. We get x squared and negative 5x, a negative 6 equals 0. So we are factoring. Remember, our middle number is our adding number. Our negative 6 is our multiplying. Be careful with this because 1 and 6 and 2 and 3 can both make 5. But they won't both make a negative 5 when you're adding and a negative 6 when you're multiplying. 1 and 6 is correct. Which one is negative? 6. So x minus 6, x plus 1. Always double check. Those do add to be negative 5 and they do multiply to be negative 6. And we set them equal to 0, and they end up equaling what?
Positive 6, -1.
And that is your answer. Oh, except for, I know, except for on when you end up factoring and all this kind of stuff, you want to check these because normally one of them is not going to work. For instance, if I take -1 in here, okay, pay attention really quick. Normally when you factor, normally not all the time, you need to check them because usually one of them will not work. Sometimes both of them work though. Okay, so if I plug -1 in here, -1 and -2 would make a what? A -3 equals, and if I put -1 here, I get the square root of -1 plus 10, which is 9. Is the square root of 9 -3? No, because anytime you have a square root 2, right, 2 for it, you will get a plus or minus answer, but inside you can't actually end up getting a negative out here. Okay, so -1 will not work. Whereas 6, if I go 6 minus 2, that makes 4. Here, 6 plus 10 is, and is the square root of 16 4?
Yeah.
So that one works. This one does not work. So my answer only is 6. But to save you time, really the only ones that you need to double check are ones that you end up factoring at the end. Okay? All right, 8 is basically a extra credit problem on your test. Do you guys want to know how to do it? Okay. So we have to get rid of our square roots, which means we're going to square both sides. What is tricky about this is that when we square this side, see how it's basically 2 terms? So what am I going to have to do to multiply this one out? Box or FOIL, which is going to make it a little bit complicated. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this to the side. We have root x plus 6 and a positive 2 and root x plus 6 and a positive 2. When you multiply, am I going too fast? Okay, root x plus 6 times root x plus 6, what does that make? X plus 6. Because you'd have 2 roots that are the same, so it would just come out, right? And then root 6 times 2, or root x plus 6 times 2 will just be 2 root x plus 6. And then we have another 2 root x plus 6. And then 2 times 2 is 4. Okay. So when we end up writing this, do you see, okay, x can't combine with anything, right? So I just have x plus 6 plus 4 is 10 plus 2 root 6 and 2 root 6 makes 4 root 6. 4 root x plus 6, thank you. Okay, equals, and then when I square this one, it just becomes what? Okay, do we notice the difference between the 2 sides? Why we have to FOIL this one or box it and why we don't? Okay, yes.
What happened to that 4 at the end?
Oh, I added, because I could combine 6 and 4 together to make that 10. And this 4 came from the 2 and the 2, which made 4. Okay? All right. But if you notice, what do I still have in my problem? A radical. So we need to get that by itself again. So what will I do? So we need to subtract x. We need to subtract 10. I'm going to start with that to try to get the radical by itself. So I have 4 root x plus 6 equals, this just happened to work out nicely that the 10s cancel out, and negative 3x and negative x makes what? Okay, what would you do now? Good, divide by 4 to both sides. Those cancel. We get x, or root x plus 6 equals what? Negative x. Now what? Not square root, but square both sides. So when I square both sides there, what do I get? No. X squared, right? Because you square negative, it becomes positive, and then you have x squared. Okay, now what do you think I'm going to do?
You're going to subtract my x.
And We're going to subtract by x and also 6 because whenever you have an x squared term, you're going to end up having to factor. Good. So we're going to subtract x and subtract 6 because we want our x squared term to be positive. So we get x squared minus x minus 6 equals 0. So we're going to factor that. What two numbers factor? Good. X minus 3 and x plus 2, which means x equals what? Good. Positive 3 and negative 2. But anytime we factor, we should check our answers. I give up. Nice. Okay. Are you guys ready to check? I'm going to do a different color so it's easy to kind of see. Okay. If I plug 3 in here, okay, 3 plus 6 makes what?
9.
And that's going to be the square root of 9, which is 3. So then I have 3 plus 2, which makes 5. Okay, equals. Here I get 3 squared, which is, or 3 times 3, 9. 10 minus 9 would give me, and the square root of 1 is, does 5 equal 1? Okay, so 3 doesn't work. Let's see if negative 2 works. If I plug negative 2 in here, negative 2 plus 6 makes 4. Square root of 4 is 2, and then 2 plus 2 is, okay. Here, negative 3 times negative 2 is, and 10 plus 6 is, and the square root of 16 is, so that one works. So my answer is just negative 2. And we're done.